Hello, welcome to McBoss Capital channel. My name is Michael Chu. Today is we're gonna recap the market for the week ending November 28, 2025. So we are finishing November month, and here we see Nasdaq. We were down quite a bit, and we came back up for the month here. So we are very close to come back to previous high here. So that's quite impressive. Here's Nasdaq on the weekly chart. We suffered 3 weeks of selling off here, and we had this strong uptrend that went up 30 weeks, which is one of the longest uptrend we saw in the last few years. And now we are bouncing back very strongly this week, so that is the good news. We have recovered above the red line, which is the 10-week moving average. Here's the daily chart. As you can see, it's more obvious here. We went through a pullback kind of thing, and we have now bounced back more than halfway. So that looks pretty good. Here's the 10-day, 50-day moving average. So all the short-term moving average, 10-day, 21-day, and the red line 50-day are all converging right now. More importantly is Wednesday we started on Tuesday, came up above it, and then Wednesday we followed through, and then Friday we went up a little bit more. Now, with all this being said, this is really good progress. Nasdaq has been lagging a little bit compared to other index, but this is very welcome move so far. It's recovering now. With that being said, we were up 5 days in a row, including last Friday, because we did have a trading day on Thursday. So for the last 5 sessions, we were trading up. We have bounced back really strong. A lot of growth stocks that I'm monitoring, which I'll be covering in the next video. Make sure if you have time to follow that. We're seeing a huge number of them in the uptrend, and shockingly high number. So to me, that is a very good sign that this rally will most likely continue towards the end of the year. And that's a welcome sign for December, and perhaps Santa rally has already begun. Here we see S&P 500 also having a really good month. At least it has come back from testing the pullback here from the bottom, and we turned out to be a positive month for November, and it's up 0.13%, very tiny, but nonetheless it's better than the Nasdaq. Here's the weekly chart. We also see here 3 weeks of pullback here, and then we have a nice bounce. Here's the daily chart. This is pullback right here. We broke the red line, and now we have come back above the 50-day moving average. And also we're able to follow through on Tuesday, Wednesday. We bounce above the trend line here, the downtrend line, and Friday we're able to move up a little bit more. Here's Dow Jones Industrial Average on the monthly chart. We're also seeing similar behavior, how it able to gain 0.3% after testing the lows here for the month. On the weekly chart, you also see that it suffered, almost similar, except the difference here, it make a new high in the second week down. On the third week, it make a new low here, but again, we're bouncing back right now. Looks really good. Here's the daily chart. On the daily chart, we see this new high here in the second week of the pullback, and then we make a new low, and then now we have bounced back above the short-term moving averages. Here's Russell 2000 monthly chart. Here you can see it also has a huge test on the 10-week moving average, and it has bounced back all the way and actually gained 0.85%. So that is quite impressive. On the weekly chart, we see a 4-week pullback here, and then ultimately this week we bounce back above the red line, which is the 10-week moving average. So right now we are getting close to the previous high again. So this looks really good. It looks like, again, with this 4 weeks of pulling back and correcting a little bit close to 9.5%, we are able to set up, and now we should see a lot of stocks also setting up, building, coming on the right side of the base. So this is also good news. And again, all this index may pull back at some point, but whether it will pull back soon before rather than later, or whether it will just continue to go to the recent previous high here and then settle down and test that level. We're yet to see. We'll see what happens in December. But this is again very good progress so far on the bounce back, because you notice how we suffered 3 weeks of pullback here, but we bounce back in 1 week and recover all 3 bars here, right? So again, that's why we're so close to new high. So the rebound has been very impressive so far. Again, we're on a 5-day run right now, so it's not weird to see a small pullback here just to test recent gains. But we'll see whether it actually becomes a complete V-shape and come back to the previous high. We'll see what happens then. So in the way, the IBD 50 ETF for the month, we had a really ugly bar. Growth stocks definitely correct the most. Right now for this month is down 12%, and that's coming from the low here. So probably at the lows, we'll be talking more than 20-ish% there in terms of correction. And so here on the weekly chart, again, we'll see the 3 bars here, very nasty three weeks of selling. And right now we're bouncing, but we're not quite at the 50-day 10-week moving average here. So we're still below that. This is still technically a downtrend, so that's something to be aware of. Here's the daily chart. So, it came back above the 10 days, so that's a good progress. The next thing it has to do now is the pink line, which it has to come back above it, which is around the 21-day moving average here, right there at this level. And then the 50-day has started to curve down, which that could be another resistance level if it breaks through there. And then ultimately, once we come back above those 3 moving averages, then we can say, hey, there's a higher chance now this momentum can carry on and come back and test new high again. So far the growth stocks are recovering, but just still this is a top 50 growth stock. So that's based on IBD list here. Okay, for the next week, December, we have the September Personal Consumption Expenditure Price Index coming off on Friday. And that's what Federal Reserve kind of likes to read on the inflation gauge. And labor data also remain key. ADP private job report is due out on Wednesday, and then followed by weekly jobless claims on Thursday. We have AI stock like Snowflake reporting, Credo, which is a big one, Pure Storage, KR, and Salesforce. Next, we'll look at the IB newspaper here. We see the NYSE advanced decline line down here. It has bounced back significantly. In fact, look at this. It has made new high. That is very impressive. This is, again, NYSE, and then the top up here is S&P. Notice S&P, we haven't, we're getting closer to the previous high, but look at this. We are near the highs already. So this is showing that there's a lot of stocks, that are, broadening in terms of strength. Let's look at Nasdaq here. As you can see, Nasdaq has suffered a pretty big down here in terms of the Nasdaq advanced decline daily line here. Now it has bounced back, pretty sharp as well. And you can see down here is pretty much, above this previous high right here. You still have a lot of work to do, but yeah. So like I said, S&P is showing a lot of strength here. Here's the 10-year yield, settling down at pretty low here, near 4%. So that's so that's interesting. The US BUP here, the US dollar strength, also settling down near the short-term moving average. However, the short-term moving average has been kind of trending higher over the longer, the last month. So we'll see if we find support there. Oil prices continue to, downtrend here. Very, not a steep slope, but it is nonetheless continue to find resistance around that line. Gold continued to move up nicely, and I think Friday was a really good day, even though it was only half a day, but a lot of gold stocks were moving, some of them even getting to new high, outpacing the gold bullion here. Silver actually make a new high, so that some stocks are doing really well. We'll touch on that in the next video. Copper also recovering, getting close to a new high zone here. So that is also interesting. Nuclear uranium is still in the downtrend here. It's trying to come back up, but we'll see what happens there. And then Bitcoin also still in the downtrend line here. Again, but kind of found resistance on Friday from the highs here, so not a good sign. Here's Wenex Semiconductor. Again, also following the market trend, it has bounced back above the short-term moving average, followed through on Friday. It's still, somewhat lagging to me a little bit, but at least it's moving up, a little bit now. So maybe they could recover. Here's NVIDIA. As the market has, rebound, unfortunately, NVIDIA is still under some selling pressure. Even on Friday, it didn't make a really nice move at all. It actually was down 1.7%. So NVIDIA just not showing the leadership that it used to, and the relative strength line continue to go down. So something to be aware of. Here's AMD, Advanced Micro Devices, also trying to bounce back, but it's still below all the short-term moving average. So yeah, it's again not really performing relatively stronger. So that's not a good sign. But it could still recover, just not the strongest. Here's Broadcom. Broadcom actually doing really well. It hasn't. It'll be reporting in 12 days. But this is already starting to make new highs, following outperforming the market right now. You can see the relative strength line making new high. So this is really good. Here's Taiwan Semiconductor, acting better than NVIDIA because it's, above the short-term moving averages, but it's not, hasn't rise significantly above it, so not a decisive move. So, but it is, nonetheless sitting above that short-term moving average. So that looks, not bad at all. So here's the IGV software ETF here. As you can see, it is not doing very well, even with the recent bounce. We are still below the green line here, which is not a good thing. It just hasn't performed even relatively any stronger at all. The downtrend is quite severe. I'm not sure why right now the software has been so weak. Definitely a lot weaker than the semiconductor group. So something to be aware of. You're not even close to the 21 day at all. So yeah. Here's Palantir. Palantir also still under the downtrend line here. It's trying to bounce back. It's still near the 10 day. Hasn't quite come up to the 21 day yet. So also acting pretty poorly in terms of relative strength performance. Here's Microsoft. Microsoft also been pulling back, making new low recently, and now we're bouncing back. Again, the bounce back is not very convincing to me so far. It's near the 10, it's above the 10 day, but still below the 21 day. So we'll see what happens next. Here's Google. Google is doing an unbelievable job. Look at Friday. It doesn't want to even come down to the green line, which is the short-term 10-day moving average. And it just looks really good. Look at this volume accumulation down here. Definitely with Warren Buffett's buying shares in the last quarter, probably he's still buying. So that can explain why this is acting so strong. No matter make a nice move this week, it's it has corrected quite a bit. It's finally coming back. It looks like it's making really good progress here. First it came back above 10 day, then above 21 day, and then on Friday it was able to bounce off that as well. So that shows that it has strength now. So that looks really good. Now we still have this red line coming down, and the 200 day probably intersecting soon. That probably will be a test right there if it comes back up. So we do have Black Friday and Cyber Monday right after Thanksgiving in the US. So we will see right now it looks pretty good. It kind of broke the downtrend line here. It bounced back above the 1021 day. So that is a good signal there. So yeah, very strong. So hopefully this will go again. Here's Apple, again with the holiday season and so forth. I still hear that the Apple phones are selling really well. So this, someone told me there's a 1 month wait in some areas. So that is really good news for Apple. Pretty much near the new high here. So here's Tesla. Tesla is just slightly below the red line, which is the 50-day moving average. And it has bounced back. It also tested the lows once here, and right now the slope looks pretty good. So I think if it passed back above, it can bounce off the above the 50-day line. There's a good potential for the momentum to build again. Here's Netflix. It hasn't done much since the 10 to 1 stock split here. It bounced for that one day and then it hit new low. Now, so far, the lows were able to hold here, but the bounce seems a little bit mediocre, right? Like it hasn't even come back about 10 day yet, and 21 days still there. So, and then 50 days coming down. So yeah, it just still look pretty weak. So overall, looking at the market in general, the indexes are performing really well. Nasdaq is still lagging. We've seen NVDA and Palantir, the top two stocks, are still not performing as we want to see it. But we are seeing other areas in terms of advanced decline line is broadening. One last thing I want to just show you quickly here is, prior to Monday, we had market in correction kind of mode here, 0 to 20% allocation by IBD. Then it jumps back to 40% on Tuesday, and then by Wednesday, we're up 40 to 60% again. In terms of accumulation distribution, we are seeing huge accumulation, like over the 500 numbers here. That's really, really high number of stocks being accumulated versus distribution. And then industry groups, same thing. We're seeing huge numbers here that are being accumulated. On the sector side, pretty much everything ends up on the net positive. So this is net number of accumulation minus distribution. And so we're seeing way overwhelming number of retail that are getting accumulated, industrials here, and then we have financials here as well. We still have health kind of doing really well, and techs are starting to bounce back in general. And then we have some commodities and precious metals area. So thank you all for watching this video. Please follow and subscribe and like and comment. And we'll come up with the next video for the list of growth stocks. You do not want to miss that. There's a lot of stocks that are moving up and they have broadened in many areas. So possibly we will see new names leading the next rally. Thank you all for watching.